He's got 60 years of experience. I've got dang near 40. And we were actually just talking about this. I think between the two of us, we have somewhere between 10 and 15,000 guitars worth of experience. Let's check out your questions because there's some really great ones. First question, how does using too much string on the rollers cause it to wear out before they fully set in? My contention is that when you put too much string on the roller, you've got all that string that is eventually stretching out a bit. But that's not really where the excessive wear comes in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, basically the wear comes if you take the entire dead length of string and start winding it onto the roller. Particularly we're talking about classical guitars here. You have to do a lot of revolutions, and the more revolutions you do, the more it wears the gears. That's that simple. And you don't need to do that. All you need to do is pull the string all the way through, pull it out, wrap it under itself, hold the end, and get it started until it goes over itself, locks into place, and bring it up to pitch, and there you are.
Yeah.
Very simple.
It comes up to tension, and honestly, if you overtune the guitar by like a half step and then leave it for an hour,
yeah,
it's going to stretch out really, really fast, and it'll be mostly done in an hour without you tugging and pulling on it. If you tug and pull on your string, you're going to knock it out of tune, aka causing falseness, and you're essentially breaking the internal wires of the string, so you're actually shortening the life of it. Don't do it. Next question. Question about tapping plates.
Tapping plates.
Yes. What's our opinion on them on classical classical, you put it in quotes.
Yes.
Your words, not mine. Classical guitars. If I approve, or do I just cover the treble side? Do I use the whole thing? Materials, and also they threw in a question about composite materials for fingerboards.
Okay.
Let's go with the second question first.
Composite materials?
Composite materials.
I don't see any reason for it. We have ebony, and the ebony works great and is very reliable for refretting. The composite materials, then we get into whole issues of what kind of glue are you going to hold them down with, how are you going to change them when they wear, how are they going to hold the frets, and so on and so forth.
We're forgetting the big thing about the composites.
Well, they don't move with the weather, whereas the neck and everything else does.
Instead of having your fretboard move and telling you that it's dry,
you lose the reference.
Right.
Yes.
You're stretching and stressing that glue joint.
Yeah.
The other part of it is we've seen composite materials that break down over 10 or 15 years. So if you are a builder using them, there's I won't say high, but there is a potential that you may have to go and replace every single one of those fingerboards if that composite goes bad.
I've in 60 years, I think I've only had 2 or 3 guitars on my bench that had composite fingerboards. They were very unworkable.
Ebony is reasonably cheap, all things considered, right?
And you can use rosewood. You don't have to use ebony.
Well, it's regenerative too.
Right.
So it's kind of self-sustaining.
Whereas all woods are. Yes.
You kind of constantly have to be making and consuming these non-organic materials to create the composite. So, maybe you feel better about having not a tree part on your guitar that's mostly made out of trees. The next question was about the tapping plates.
Yes,
tapping plates.
Forgot. Well, I have a lot of experience with tapping plates, being a flamenco player. Anybody who plays flamenco is going to have protection on the top of their instrument because of the golpes that are all part of flamenco technique. That's the whole reason they're on the guitar. Now, some classical players also might benefit from having them.
I think we say this all the time.
Yeah.
I firmly believe that every classical guitar should have a hard glued plate to the surface, not a peel and stick, but a hard glue one.
Right.
Because they, in our experience with the way that we put them down, they are acoustically invisible.
Yes.
And there would be so many great guitars still left. I mean, what comes to mind off the top of my head, not a classical player, but a classical guitar, some guy named Willie Nelson with
Trigger.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that guitar would, maybe it would be a legend.
There's a hole in the top, dear Liza.
Yeah. The other one that comes to mind readily is the Julian Bream's Hauser.
Yes, Julian Bream really, his lone 1940 Hauser was mangled on the top from Julian Bream, who is a straight classical player.
Yep.
But many classical players do get into the top when they play. they would benefit from having a plate.
Yep.
So,
and you know, myriad of others that we see coming through here where they say, I'm just a classical player. It's like, yes, but you're pulling a hole into it. If a plate is glued on correctly, and I don't mind a lot of the modern plastics for that, I think that they work really, really well. You can use wood, but then you're changing the mass of the top and thus altering the sound. I love them. I think that every guitar should have them.
You know what? Your violin people use plates also.
That's true.
How many violins have you seen that have a protective plate on the upper treble bout right by the neck because they're getting horrifically worn from the erosion of the skin oils from playing in the upper positions on the fretboard?
Have you been looking at my vintage violins?
There you go.
All of my vintage violins.
And they all have a clear plate that's been applied on there. So a lot of people don't know that.
Yes. I've got, for those who don't know, I'm a violinist. I am trained as a violin maker. I have a few really nice old violins, and they all have that little plastic guard on there. I didn't put them on, previous owners did.
It preserves the life of the instrument.
Can the scale length of the guitar be altered? Short answer, long answer.
Well, short answer is theoretically yes. Long answer is no, you don't want to do that.
Right. It depends on where we are talking about the scale length being altered. You're not going to go from like a 664 to a 630.
No.
Right? Because in order to do that, you have to take off the bridge, you have to take off the fingerboard, make a new fingerboard, refinish the top, and it's still going to look awful. By the way, that 12th fret may stay the same.
Basically, for a classical guitar, classical guitarists reference the 12th fret at the joint of the neck and the body. Within a plus or minus a very small range, that's the 12th fret. So
About the width of the fret.
If you want to change the scale, you've got to change it from the nut end and the bridge end, which means you've got to change the saddle position on the bridge. And that's not really going to be a good thing because you're moving the bridge. That's a critical acoustical element of the guitar, and you don't want to be messing around with that.
Right. And the yes part of this is we see a lot of guitars that come in where they treated math as feelings.
Yes.
So it kind of didn't matter. When you get one of these guitars in, what we can do and have done many times, you're based off of where your guitar is now with the nut where it is and the saddle where it is, your bridge has been placed 2 millimeters too close. Right?
Well, then we can correct a bad math on the
So
the fretting or the placement.
We do correct the scale, at least the cut fret scale length, to match the actual scale. So we leave the nut in the same place and we recalculate out where it should have been.
Yes.
Or sometimes we'll do that if the frets were...
But those are that's a minor change. That's not a significant change of scale length from a player standpoint.
I guess to answer the question, can we change the scale of the guitar? Yes and no, but it depends on which one you need.
Yeah.
So if it's a gross scale change, no. If it's a correction of math, then it's a yes.
Yes.
That's a great question.
Yeah, actually it is.
Because I mean, we see this quite often.
I don't consider correcting incorrect fret positions as a change of scale length, but in a way it is.
Right, because the maker intended something.
Yes.
But due to something, I'm sure along the way,
they missed it by that much.
They missed it by that much.
Yes.
And we see this. We see nebulous math all the time.
That's true. Next question.
Okay. All right.
Moving right along.
Why do we not use adjustable bridge and saddle with a trapeze or similar tailpiece? This, of course, is a standard for steel string arch tops, and millions of vintage flat tops use similar design. Thoughts on implementing this with the classical guitar?
It doesn't really work. It doesn't move the needle for sound or for performance.
Well, okay.
And it's solving, again, a problem that's not a problem.
If you have the tailpiece, what you are doing is you're changing the location of and directionality of the tension. Guitar.
Yes, you're not pulling on the top. You're now pushing down on the top.
Right. Yes. And that's a different kind of a tone production style.
Yes, yes.
So you're going to significantly change the top. On a violin with that 125 degree angle, 127.5 degree angle, because these are the numbers that we have to know. You are exerting 165 pounds of downforce on the top of a violin. Guitars were not designed for that kind of a force going into it. They are designed for a rotational force of the string going up and essentially rotating over the bridge.
Yes.
Now, there was something that was similar to that, which is the hop-free plate.
Yeah, the free vibrating top system.
Right, where you had to fish a
enormously long string. Yeah. The strings attached at the rear of the guitar, they go through holes in the bridge, up over the saddle, and then to the head. The idea being you took the pressure off of the bridge that might make it want to fly away or whatever you're trying to fix there. And it was a terrible idea because the guitars sound like crap and they didn't work. And there's only one brand of strings that offered a string that was long enough to mount on that without tying other string leaders to it to make them long enough.
Which we still have. So if you have one of those and need strings, give us a call. We're the only people in the world that have it.
We have those strings for that, which are no longer made, by the way.
Yep.
Next question.
The next question, we're going to talk about fingerboards a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. In the cleaning video, I mentioned no waxes, no polishes, no oils.
Correct.
What about boiled linseed oil or paste wax for the fingerboards?
Not necessary.
Okay, next question. Perhaps rosewood fingerboards are better for humidity swings. What are our views on lattice brace guitars? Some of the all-wood ones sound warm with complex overtones. Let's start with the fingerboards. Are rosewood fingerboards better for humidity swings?
Depends on the species of rosewood. If you're talking about an Indian rosewood fingerboard, which is typical from the lower priced Japanese instruments, yeah, those are very stable.
Yeah. They're very dimensionally stable.
Very dimensionally stable.
Almost as good as rosewood, or ebony.
But yeah, the Brazilian rosewood ones might move a little more depending on the orientation of the grain in them. The main difference is in the hardness of them. And so you have to take that into account when the fret slots are cut so that they fit your fret wire with the proper tightness and grip to the fretboard that you need for the transmission of the sound. And because they're a little bit softer, it's going to have a little bit of different effect on the sound. I believe the Spanish makers took that into account when they selected one or the other wood for their fingerboards.
Yeah, I think it was more of a musical statement than a
the
stability, economic, or what have you.
Right.
They're roughly very similar in terms of dimensional stability. I don't think that you're going to get anything better or worse. I can say that based off of the mathematics of the equation, I think that the rosewood is going to be more susceptible to humidity changes, but I mean, we're splitting hairs here.
Well, aside from the neck itself, the fingerboard on a classical guitar is the thickest piece. And because it's so thick and it's already glued, so only one surface is really exposed, the fingerboards are very slow to absorb humidity or give off humidity. In other words, they're very slow to change the dimensions. But it is inevitable, if they're in certain conditions for long enough, they will eventually respond. But it's the slowest thing to respond.
Yeah. And if you want to really dive deep into the woods, there's a whole mathematical formula for figuring out how long it's going to take for that specific material to react. For ebony, for the thickness of a fingerboard, they say it's done at 5. We age ours for a minimum of 7, just for safety's sake.
Yes. Yeah.
Years.
That's for a fingerboard blank that's about 3/8 of an inch or 10 millimeters thick.
Yeah.
So that's how long we allow.
And once you mill it down to like 6 or 7 millimeters, it takes a little bit less time.
It's less time. The thinner it is, the less time it takes.
Lattice guitars, real quick. I like
lattice.
It depends on straight lattice guitars. There's a lot of makers that make them. Actually, I've got one in my shop right now. Lovely guitar.
It's an old idea. Actually, it's been around for quite a while. It's more commonly used today. There's many ways to put the barring underneath the top to control the sound, and they all work in one way or another. So it's up to the players to tell us which ones are the best.
I think we've seen lattice go back to the 1600s.
But you could almost think of it that way, like the lutes with their straight across barring or so-called ladder bracing.
Well, we had that one that was in that had like right under the bridge. It had like a little tiny lattice to strengthen that area. So and that was from like the 1690s. So yes, it's been around for a while. It works really, really well. I don't have any problem with it. I like lattice guitars if they sound good. And I don't care what bracing the guitar sounds. Does it sound good? Does it not sound good? That's up to you, not me, or him, or my cameraman. How do you know when you're having problems playing, if it's you or the guitar? As an inexperienced player, I can't tell.
That's an excellent question.
I got the answer.
Okay.
Buy a guitar from me. It'll be set up perfect.
Yeah.
Okay? And then it's just you.
I think this is an instance where a good teacher can be invaluable in guiding you and making sure that as you're learning, you're not using really inefficient and bad techniques that become ingrained after you do them for a long period of time. And then you can't make the guitar accommodate a bad technique. So as long as you've got proper technique, then we can look at the guitar to make sure it's right for you.
This is where I think that an in-person
Yes.
teaching where you are sitting across from somebody and they are looking at you, telling you what you are doing good and what you are not doing good and how to fix it is really invaluable. Is it safe to change the shape of a neck? Is this something that an amateur should attempt, or should he bring it to a luthier? And love to see you, come see you, but you're in New Zealand at the moment. Hello, New Zealand. Thanks for watching. I appreciate that.
My first advice for someone when they bring a guitar in and want to reshape the neck is to take it to the original maker, because they know the instrument better than anybody. Often it can be, especially with classical guitars, there can be buried reinforcements in the neck that we're not aware of. And
carbon
fibers, steel, or whatever,
you name
aluminum. You'd be surprised what you can run into. Once you start cutting into it, there's no going back. And if you cut through, it can be a major disaster. So we don't like to do that, but it can be done. It's not something we recommend. There has to be a very, very strong reason for doing it.
You have to love the guitar, be willing to take a bullet for it twice.
Right.
And also it has to be, I think, of a value high enough that you are willing to take a financial hit for the work being done, because it's not an insubstantial amount of work.
Yeah.
And B, the financial hit of it is no longer original.
Right. Yeah, the marketplace is not going to cheer that on financially. So
Right.
Yeah, so you have to like the new result. There's no going back.
Right. And now that you've customized it at that level, I'm not against it, because there are certain makers that we see reoccurring with people desiring to cut down the necks, and we've done that for several makers many times. I think that those guitars are absolutely fantastic, and they are a lot more comfortable, and the players love it. So it's not a no thing. It's just we have to be careful with.
Well, one final consideration with that too is that all necks have a certain what I call resonant frequency. If you were to tap on them, which all feeds back into the guitar when you play it. And when you reduce material off of the neck, even small amounts, you change that inherent original resonant frequency. That could result in improvement. It could result in a dead note. So there's a risk involved when you do change that neck. With the only thing we can really guarantee, it's like refinishing a guitar. The only guarantee is it's not going to sound the way it sounds now. Might be better, might be worse. That's a judgment call, but once it's done, there's no going back.
You've made it this far, click that subscribe button. I would really appreciate that. If you hit that subscribe button already, we appreciate you. Check us out on Patreon and check out some of the guitars that are in the showroom. A lot of these issues have been addressed on, actually, all these issues have been addressed on the guitars in the showroom. So use promo code YouTube for a little discount, and we'll find something else. Please continue commenting, liking, sharing on these videos.
We love the comments.
Yes. Add more questions, because we love answering them. This is actually really fun for us.
Yeah.
We got a question about a strap. The most common way to play a strap is one at the end pin and one at the head. Why don't we put them in at the heel?
Yeah, we can do that. We've done it. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Generally speaking, for most guitars, that's...
Is there a practical reason why people don't do it? It's a permanent modification. That said, we've de-strapped many a guitar. We've added straps to many more guitars.
It's kind of hard to hide the hole if you put it in the heel.
Yeah.
But most of the time, it's on the underneath side of the heel, so most people don't notice it.
I think the big one is that if you play up the neck a lot, your hand may get caught on it if it's not placed in the right spot.
That's true.
But beyond that, just put it in the heel. It's fine.
Yeah.
Figure out where you like it. I'm not a big fan of it on the back because it wants to dump the guitar forward. I like it slightly forward of the midpoint of the guitar so it leads back into you. All right, next. How much do you compensate for the tension created when pressing the strings between the frets? Bought a guitar and developing two big cracks down from the bridge down. If you've got two cracks developing along the side of the bridge and it was shipped to you,
that's an indication that a guitar probably rattled around in the case enough that it bounced on the bridge to then push the bridge down hard enough that the bridge arms cracked the top.
Yep, it's a wump crack.
Yeah,
the wump crack. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, it's pretty fixable, but
that means that it was kind of mishandled. Unless it's a finish check.
That'll be more meandering if it's a lacquer, thicker lacquer finish. It won't be in line with the grain.
Yeah,
it'll be kind of meandering on each side, maybe with extra little
crackles, crazes,
crackles and crazy. Yeah.
Oh, do we take into account the distortion of strings when we push them down, when we build a guitar. I'm assuming for the
Oh, for intonation.
Yes.
Okay, that sort of relates to the height of the fret, but basically there's a mathematical position for the frets,
Right.
and a good player controls the hand tension so they don't over squeeze or under squeeze.
Well, my contention with this is there's so little difference between essentially the top of the fret and the bottom of the string.
Yeah,
If you are pushing that hard, that's a technique issue, and so we can't compensate for that.
Yeah.
But also, there's so little difference between the top of the fret and the fingerboard, it doesn't matter.
well, that's true. It's actually very hard to with most modern fret wire to get a string to bottom out to the fretboard. They don't go there even if you really squeeze the heck out of them. More latitude for pitch by pushing and pulling the string than there is by pushing it.
Right, and chances are, if you're getting an intonation issue in that respect where you're pushing it down, watch your technique. You may be squigging in one direction
You may
or
be
another.
pulling or pushing this way or that way, and that has more of an effect.
Yeah, on our end, not so much. In our experience, can we talk about particularly good and particularly bad woods in guitar construction? Good woods: Indian rosewood, cypress, maple, spruce, redwood. Bad woods: Cocobolo. I'm not a big fan of that. It's too oily, makes me too asthma-y.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have issues with it because it's kind of a poison. Bad wood number 2 for me is Wenge.
Yes, nasty splinters.
Nasty splinters. Every time I touch it, my hands are on fire for a week because of the micro splinters.
Yeah. Well, we might also mention that should go without mentioning, but you could have any of those good woods
That are
but
bad.
of very bad quality, in which case we don't use that.
Although that said, we've also built really good guitars out of bad quality wood.
We have, and we've done that intentionally just to prove the point that you can. It's not the wood necessarily that makes the guitar. It's the whole design, the whole body, the whole recipe of the guitar as it comes together in conjunction with the player that makes the sound.
Camatillo. That's a bad wood.
Yes.
Don't use that.
Yeah.
It sounds like wet cardboard. It's super oily. It doesn't glue to itself. It doesn't glue to anything. It's the only thing that I've ever seen super glue hit, ball up, and run off, and then run away on the floor. Kind of.
We should mention that Camatillo is an actual true rosewood that's native to Mexico, the Dalbergia Camatillo, and it's so heavy it sinks if you put it in water when it's fully dried.
And it looks just like Brazilian.
It looks just like Brazilian.
Last question, and again, put them down below. We really appreciate it.
We read them all.
We do. I'd like to ask about a guitar with a Spanish neck joint.
Yes.
Or Spanish foot.
Yep. Spanish foot neck.
No truss rod. If the angle is leading forward, as it should be,
Yes.
how would that be repaired? Should the front and back ends of the fingerboard be planed to form a slope to accommodate the forward leading angle?
Well, if I may, all Spanish guitars have the necks inclined upwards to some small degree. The fact that the neck is leaning forward is not a defect, it's a feature. Now, the question is whether it leans forward too much for your desired action. The Spanish control the action of the guitar by the angle of the neck in relation to the plane of the top. So that's how they build their instruments.
And there's a ton of ways of measuring it, but this is the way that we do it with our National Bureau of Standards. We measure down here to your fingers, which are in the way.
Thank you.
And then we measure the extension out at this end, the neck angle, and there should be somewhere between 1 and 5 millimeters of lift. That
In relation to that theoretical straight line between there and here.
In order to fix that, if the neck angle is bad,
Yes.
meaning the action's too high and you can't get the saddle down and off, yes, we'll plane off some here. Or if it's too high up here because the neck is leaned back, we can take off some here. But in really gross situations, and we do this for Ramirez quite a lot, the Jose Ramirez III's, we just replace the fingerboard because there isn't enough existing wood there to get the action to do what it needs to do, because those can have a neck angle of up to 10 millimeters.
And then some.
And then some. I think our shop record is 12.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, and people think, well, it must have pulled up. No, it didn't pull up.
It was
the
made that
guitar
way.
was built that way, and people have trouble conceptualizing that, but that's how the Spaniards build their guitars.
That's how we fix it. We do it all the time. I've got 5 guitars in here that I'm doing that for, and I think you just got a couple of them off your bench that he did. So, common problem.
Thanks for watching, and keep the questions coming.
Yep, click on this video or this video for your watching pleasure. See you next time.